Hello and welcome to another episode of Search of the Record, a podcast coming to you from the Google Search team discussing all things search and having some fun along the way. My name is Martin and I'm joined today by Lizzi and Gary from the Search Relations team, of which I'm also part of. Hi Lizzi, hi Gary. How dare you? Okay.
How can you just leave him hanging like this? You're supposed to say hi back.
Yes.
Hi back.
I mean, he's following instructions, so
I guess we're having a literal day.
Yeah, we are having a literal day. Speaking of literals, the Hreflang implementation.
Why would you?
You know, I have questions. I have so many questions, and my computer.
And why now? Like, what? Did I do something or?
You did indeed do something. You changed the documentation recently, no?
Oh, I keep doing that.
Yeah,
yes.
For Hreflang, I mean.
Oh, maybe.
Haha. And you threw me under the bus. I am on the hook for a Hreflang or like multinational site Q&A situation soon.
Okay, I don't know where did you see the bus, because it was like me sending an email. Does anyone want to go? And then you were like, yeah, I will jump on that bus.
I think he just launched himself in front of the bus. Like the bus was coming.
Okay. But I do have a question.
Just one?
No, I have actually a bunch of questions. So the thing that I know about it is I have in the past implemented Hreflang on a small site, and I know how that works, and I know what our guidelines are for these. But everyone keeps telling me it's very complicated and it's so easy to make a mistake and it's so complex. And I'm not seeing this complexity.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, where does that come from?
Is it because it was a small site?
Probably. I don't know.
I think it comes when your site is big or you are managing multiple properties, and the multiple properties each have their own URL structures. Because like not ideally. Well, yeah, like in a utopistic view, you could have like example.com / ch dch / and your pages. And then for English, you would just have ENUS. And it would work. It would be so simple. But then let's say that in another jurisdiction, you need to have like a separate domain. Like you need to have like example.es, for example. I don't know what you are selling, but maybe you need a different domain name. And then maybe on that different domain name, you can't follow that pattern anymore. So you absolutely need to be able to annotate separately everything, like every language country variation. And as soon as you have to vary things, that's where you start introducing errors.
True, because then you can't just apply it by a pattern.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you have, let's say, multiple, like many domain names for many regions, and each has to follow a different publishing semantic or whatever, that's where your errors can come into play.
What do you mean by publishing semantic?
Like, I don't know, like URL structure or something like that. I don't know.
So it's harder to sync them up because maybe you're localizing the URL or something, and then you don't know that these things match, and then you make typos, and then...
Like, for example, with us on Onesie, what is Google.com/search, there we don't localize the URLs.
Yeah.
No, we don't localize the URLs. We have a parameter that changes the language of the page, the AGL parameter, but the words in the URLs, they are not changing.
They're not changing, but we have inherited some non-English URLs when we migrated the blog.
And we had hell of a time with that.
Yes.
So that's where also complexity can be introduced by just inheriting like a grown structure, and then it's some of it is like this and some of it is like that. And
so that's what I was wondering when you said that you implemented Hreflang for the small site. Was it like, were you in charge of the whole plan, or were you dealing with already localized content
No.
It was implement something?
It was a greenfield project that I think made things a lot easier. We started from scratch, and we knew that we would have multiple language versions from the get-go.
Okay, so you can set up the plan and make sure that it makes sense from your business strategy, for example.
And I wasn't involved in all the discussions, but like we had language subfolders or subdirectories. So it was like /en/ and then whatever, and then /de/ whatever. I don't know why we chose that. I know that there's pros and cons to that versus subdomains or just completely different top-level domains. I have no idea why we chose that. It doesn't really matter, does it? I mean,
no.
from a search perspective, it doesn't matter.
No.
Really? Like not even like the .ch doesn't matter?
No, subdomain doesn't matter. Like if you have .ch,
.ch, .de, .it, .com.
but that's a CCTLD.
Yeah, but that matters.
That would matter. Yeah.
Aha.
I think, and now we switch like more into the internationalization topic, and we are not on Hreflang anymore. I think eventually, like in years' time, that will also fade away, like that benefit.
Oh.
Because it's not as reliable anymore as it was back in 2000.
That's true.
Reliable
like
in what sense?
That it could accurately tell you that this domain is related to the country Switzerland.
Oh.
Like imagine, like just think about the all the funny domain names that you can buy nowadays, like the .ai, like I think that's Antigua or something, or the CCTLD for Antigua. Like it doesn't say anything anymore about the country. Like it doesn't mean that it's like the content is for the country.
I see, because people are running out of the spaces at the .com level, so they're going.
I don't think they are running out of spaces. They like it just can be used to be more creative with the language.
I was about to say I used to have the domain 50 lines of code.de because it's like a coding blog.
Yeah.
And so it was like code. It reads out as code. 50 lines of code. It had nothing to do with Germany.
Yeah.
Like I didn't live in Germany. It was not in German.
Did that cause any problems?
I don't think so. I got good traffic on it.
Well, I don't think that it causes problems necessarily, because one of the main algorithms that do the whole localization thing that is called something LDCP, language demotion country promotion. So basically, if you have like a .de, then for users in Germany, you would get like a slight boost with your .de domain name. But nowadays, like with whatever -co.de, which doesn't relate to Germany anymore, doesn't really make sense for us to like automatically apply that little boost, because it's ambiguous that what the target is.
Okay, because it's the topic of the site in combination with the language that Martin is writing in.
The language is absolutely not a tell for what country you are targeting.
That would have been my next question. Like the blog clearly was English and it was a DE domain, so I didn't get the boost. Okay, interesting.
So, like, I think from a marketing perspective, there's still some value in buying the CCTLDs. And if I were to run some spam network, like a new business, then I would try to buy the country TLDs when I can, when like it's monetarily feasible, but I would not worry too much about it.
Okay. And with things that are not CCTLDs, let's say like I have something.com/de, and most of the content in there is German, and then there's a few pages in English. Is that something that search would not like, or is that like whatever?
Not like.
Be confused by.
So what would the effect be of that if I, for some reason, have English content in /de?
No, I'm still stuck on UI anthropomorphizing Google, but
Googlebot is cute.
Would it cause problems? I don't think so. I can't come up with a scenario where it would cause problems, because we can go down to page level when we are trying to promote something for a user in a specific country. It doesn't have to be the site.
Okay.
Like it can be the site, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Okay.
Like we could know that, or we could have learned over the years that martinco.de, that is a global site. But then we see that some specific page or section of the site is specifically targeting people living in
Switzerland.
No.
Now
I want to like move away from global, so back to Germany.
Okay.
In Berlin or Frankfurt.
Okay.
And then we could say that those pages should get a boost in Germany.
Aha. Even though they're only targeting one specific region of Germany,
right.
we look at it from a country's perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you say you're targeting, is it the content on the page or another part that is showing?
Let's go with content on the page.
Content on the page, okay.
Okay. I have another question. This actually does come back to Hreflang again. So say I have an Hreflang annotation on the English version of a page, and it says this is the German version of this page.
Mhm.
But then for some reason I made a mistake, and the actual content on the page isn't German. Is that going to cause problems or not?
Not from a Hreflang perspective, as far as I remember. So I worked on the parsing implementation plus the promotion implementation of Hreflang, and back then it didn't cause problems.
Okay.
But that was like 2016 or something.
Okay, that's a few years back.
Like since then we changed so many things that I would have to check whether it causes problems. I think it wouldn't.
Okay.
Because when I spelled out LDCP, then I said the language demotion, country promotion. So for example, if someone is searching in German and your page is in English, then you would get a negative, the demotion in the search results.
It's less relevant to the query, to the person.
Unless you are searching for something like, how do you spell banana? Right?
Okay, fair enough.
Because then it doesn't really matter like what kind of
it does.
It still matters, but
because you're searching for something in English, so we would think, okay, you want some page that explains how to spell banana in English, not German.
But then we also know that the German is fine, like previous queries, for example. I mean, for personalization, we do use these kind of things.
So if Martin happens to write in English, how do I spell banana? But they know that Martin also likes German content.
No, yesterday when we were looking for something on Onesie and we kept getting the German version. Like when I went home, then I looked into it and it was personalization basically, because right before that I was searching in German.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So that can also happen. But like if you break away from personalization, then generally we will try to push down languages that are not in the current AGL language. AGL language being the interface language that you are searching in.
I see.
Like Google.com itself in using the German UI phrases.
And going back to more of developer questions, there's the lang attribute on HTML tags.
Sure.
Do we care about that? Okay, I had a feeling that might be unreliable for most of the pages.
It is. And that's because, like, if you think back, like earlier days, I remember that I think Joomla just came with the lang attribute set to English, and there was no way to override it, even if you change the template to German or whatever. So it was just like basically yelling that, hey, I'm English, I'm English, I'm English, I'm English. And then you looked at the page and it was 100% German. So it was like,
okay, so it became like not a reliable thing to look at. So therefore, it doesn't matter if you get it wrong or right. We're not looking at it.
Right, correct. And I don't think that we would want to change that either. Because if John were here, then he would probably argue against this that I'm going to say. But like ultimately, I would want less and less annotations, site annotations, and more automatically learned things.
Okay, because
it is very likely more reliable.
I'm on the fence about that, because if it goes wrong, then I don't have the means to self-correct that.
I think we should have overrides.
Okay.
But we should be able to, for example, learn Hreflang automatically.
Entirely.
Like even when I worked on Hreflang, like we already had something that was automatically learning that two pages are the same or different versions of the same content. Like we could already do that. And this was like almost 10 years ago. Wow, I'm old. Now with the advancements that we have with AI and all that weirdo stuff.
Wow, you're so excited about it. I'm loving it.
I think we are overusing that term, but that's podcast for another day.
What you need is a regex.
Regex, yes.
Is regex the new AI?
The regex the new AI. Anyway, but if like almost 10 years ago we could already do that really quite reliably, then why would we not be able to do it now?
Okay.
Is it for the failsafe thing? Like, we don't have another option for you
I
to
think
do
it
that,
was
the
just-
override, like
I think
for
it-
people
we-
to say that this is what I want?
You know how sometimes we lose interest in things?
Oh, we're just bored. Well, it's like, it's not that broken,
Okay.
so they'll just let it continue.
And also me being cynical. So
Sure.
Okay, but I mean, if we say that the language attribute is not reliable, do we still think that hreflang attributes are then reliable? So if I'm marking up something as this is the German version, then it turns out to be the English version, we are kind of having the same problem, no?
I think not. And that's because the lang attributes typically come baked in whatever publishing software you are using. Hreflang is not. So with Hreflang, you have to put in some extra effort to deploy it. It probably costs a lot. So you actually pay attention. Like if you are deploying for someone like a bigger company, like let's say big e-commerce site Nile.com, and then you have to add it to every page in the either in the sitemap or in the HTML or HTTP headers. That's probably a very big investment like monetarily. And then you want to ensure that whatever you are doing is actually correct.
Okay.
Like there's an incentive for you to ensure that it's correct.
True.
With given things like the lang attribute that comes with your CMS, or actually the IDE might actually just give you the HTML template if you're which already has like lang equals en.
So why isn't hreflang baked in just like lang would be from a CMS perspective? Why are they not doing
lang is part of the HTML standard, and I think to be a valid quote-unquote HTML document, you have to have a language attribute set.
Yeah. Okay.
And hreflang is...
So it's just out of the box, you have to have that, so therefore it already has it, but for hreflang...
You don't need it, necessarily. It's a thing that you can have, but you don't have to have it. To be fair, lang, you don't have to have it either. The browser will just work as fine, but people are still using like validators that are like, this doesn't have
it's not
a
filled
lang
in.
attribute. This is not fine. And then they're like, okay, fine, I'll just set it to English.
Also, I think the number of sites that actually need hreflang is really tiny.
Yes.
Compared to the web, yeah.
Yeah.
I looked this up before this episode that the Web Almanac, that 9% of sites have hreflang in 2022.
Of sites or pages?
Of home pages. The crawl in 2022 only crawled home pages.
But when I read that number, I also didn't know, like, what does this mean? Is it a lot? Is it not very many?
That sounds like a lot to me.
That's way more than I expected. Like
what
way,
did you expect?
Way more. Like 1-2%.
I would have said 5.
If it were like pages on the internet, then it would be fine, I think. But if it's just home pages, then it feels weird.
And 5% out of the 9, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but English was the bulk of what they said as the hreflang for the homepage.
Interesting.
I wonder if that's like a misunderstanding and people were like, oh yeah, we have to have like a version of hreflang that says this is the English version, even though if we don't have any other language versions. But then again, to be fair, I think there is a lot. Okay, I do believe there is quite a large portion of websites that do have multiple language versions.
Okay.
More than 9%?
No, I think 9% is actually reasonable.
Really?
I think so. If you think about it, a lot of companies are doing a multi-language service, and even like smaller restaurants are now offering their menus in German and English.
But you are in Switzerland.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. That's true. But like even Germany and
Italy...
but
in the US you have Spanish.
Sure.
Oh, and then there's like legal requirements like Canada, all of the official websites at least, but that they're not homepages. They're not necessarily all homepage.
Interesting. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
I mean, I believe the stat, but I'm just weirded out.
Yeah, it's a surprising number. I think so as well. You said something about hreflang coming from HTTP headers, HTML tags, or the XML sitemap, right?
Yes. Is it a leading question?
No. What I'm wondering is, so the HTML tags and the HTTP headers are relatively close to each other in terms of where they are being ingested, but the XML sitemap is slightly... Does it make a difference where I implement hreflang? Do I have to implement all of them, or can I just get away with just doing one of them? And if I do one, which one?
So the ingestion, that's yes, it's coming from different parts of the pipeline, like map annotations come from the feeds ingestion point.
Oh yeah, true. That's feeds, and the headers and the headers for sure come from Googlebot. No.
Sure. I mean, everything comes from Googlebot. Like
Yeah,
HTML
okay,
also
but
comes from
like in the
Googlebot.
crawling part of.
Sure. But like internally, the representation of whatever we crawl, that will have the headers, and then it will have the body, like the HTML or the HTTP body message as well.
Yeah.
And then from there, we are doing processing with it. Technically, it doesn't matter where you provide it, but I think that it can be faster if it's in the HTTP headers or in the HTML, because feeds, like we process it
eventually,
well, like at one point, but it's not tied to a specific page.
Okay.
Like if you publish something, like you want to get that weird non-GMO scented candle online as fast as possible and sell it on multiple markets, then you probably want that annotation to be seen as fast as possible by Googlebot, because there is like a dependency crawl triggering when we discover hreflang. Like we want to verify that
that's truly a language variation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to probably have it in the HTML, but of course that's not always feasible, because you might have like Nile.com that has like billions and billions of pages, and then you want to put it somewhere that doesn't cause problems for your serving infrastructure, because HTML blocks can be really big if you support like I don't know, like Onesie supports 11 languages or something.
18.
Sure, 18.
But that's not that big of a block. I mean, like.
Well, byte-wise, yes.
Really?
If you add it up.
For the whole site or like per
Really?
page?
I mean, if you add it up, of course.
It's less than a kilobyte, no?
Yes.
A kilobyte is not much.
But if you are serving, but if you are serving 1 billion times.
Okay. But we cache, no? Well, no, we don't.
No. But think about the site's perspective. Like you have to serve that like 1 billion times to users.
Oh, yes. From a site's perspective, I was like
from our perspective, it's like 1 billion pages. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
Are there any other reasons to have it on the page? Like not just for Googlebot finding?
I mean, for search engines, I don't think anything else uses it.
Okay.
Okay.
What about for discovery?
No. I don't think it's good for discovery, other than discovering the dependency.
Dependency.
Yeah, so verifying that two URLs are in the same cluster.
I see.
Something that surprised me in our docs, I think, is that you have, like, the page has to self-reference it in the set of hreflang blocks.
I don't remember why we have it there. Like yesterday, I was editing that page, and I saw that sentence, and I was like, I wonder why we have this here.
It's not actually required?
I know that we have it there for a reason. I just don't remember what the reason is.
Damn.
Like, what is real? Because it seems like counterintuitive. Like, why would you need to say that this is the page that I am on? Like, isn't it obvious that you're on this page where
I think it was somehow related to rel canonical.
Oh.
Like, we were recommending that you put a self-referencing canonical on the page with the hreflang block. And I think we moved away from that. Like, basically, it's like, if you put rel canonical on the page, then don't do it for hreflang. Do it because, I don't know, it will save puppies or whatever. But it's not related anymore to hreflang. And then we saw some issues, and I might be making this up, like this is from memory. We saw some issues, and then we said that just put a self-referencing hreflang on the page.
Is this like a fail-safe kind of thing where it's like if you say this, then okay, we have another mechanism to check that that's what you indeed meant?
Yeah, I think so.
More signals, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure about like why we say it, but I know that there was like back then good reason.
It sounds like it would kind of still work if you don't do it for some cases at least. But all right, okay.
I'm pretty sure it would work.
That's interesting.
Try it.
We should try it.
But I haven't tried it yet. I will try it.
Test him.
But you said canonical, and that brings me to a different thing. You have 2 language versions.
Okay.
And we both know that Swiss German and German German are, at least in written form, pretty similar, unless you write like dialect, which you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But there are differences. For instance, if I have a product page for a German shop, you will see a different VAT, and you will see a different currency, and probably also a different price. And then in Switzerland, like the variations are pretty much the exact same page, except for VAT and price and currency.
Sure.
Shipping.
Oh, maybe shipping, yeah.
Return policies.
But maybe shipping only shows up later on. Maybe it's not on the product detail page. Maybe it's in your cart, or who knows where.
Why is shipping in your cart?
Like if you go in the cart and then it actually says how much shipping you have to pay. I don't know. My point is these pages are very similar to each other. So I think deduplication might kick in. But then you hreflang like, oh, there's different versions.
Yeah.
That works, right?
Yeah.
Because I've heard like, and I think I know why people are complaining about that not working. Because I think that has something to do with the reporting in Google Search Console.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So that's that one.
Do we want to explain?
Yes.
Yes,
I don't know
please.
what you mean.
Oh, okay.
Like, what is the problem in Search
Right.
Console?
So what people have told me, like here I go to example.de, and this page is not canonicalized, and it's not. Google says it's not, or Search Console says it's not indexed.
Ah.
But why is it? I have the hreflang set up and everything, and I'm like, well, it is indexed as part of the href. Well,
Interesting.
It's not indexed, but there's
it becomes
a reference
an alternate.
Yeah. Okay. It becomes thank you. Yeah. Now I have the right wording. No, you know when you know a concept, but it's really hard to put into words. And I always said like, well, it's kind of indexed, but not really. So it's an alternate. So in the reporting, it looks like it fell out of the index at some point.
Okay. And from a user perspective, or the site owner perspective,
from a site owner's perspective, they're like,
indexed,
oh my
these
god,
are both unique
yeah,
enough
exactly.
that they should both be indexed.
Yeah. But I think like a searcher in Germany would still get the German version, even though the Swiss version would be canonical, for instance.
I think it's also important to mention that Search Console only reports canonical on canonicals. So basically, the vast majority of the hreflang clusters, when we are talking about similar languages, they are not canonical. So basically, you are blind to what's happening on the non-canonical pages of a cluster. But that was a tough product decision because we don't store information about the alternate names. We just put them in the dupe cluster and just say that these are localized alternate names that we can show in search results when the user query plus settings what's the word? Imply it. For example, we could swap out the URL for nile.com to nile.ch if the language on it was similar and the user was from Switzerland, for example.
I see. And is this from like a efficiency perspective, like resourcing wise, storage?
In Search Console, yes. Like Search Console has some really big sites in it. And when you have to store information for those sites as well, then like, I don't know, like nile.com and thumbnotes.com, then each of these having like hundreds of millions of pages, then it becomes a real struggle figuring out how to store data efficiently. And then you will have to make shortcuts.
So are you saying that it looks like a problem in Search Console, but it's not actually a problem in practice?
No, but we also have announcement about this, and I know that people were unhappy. We tried to explain it. Didn't necessarily change how people perceive it.
Right.
We consider it a feature. I know that some people consider it a bug.
I mean, I see their perspective because canonicals sometimes change. So like you see, it looks in Google Search Console, it looks like pages drop out of the index and eventually come back in and then drop out again. And you're like, this should be a more or less straight line, but it's like a squiggly graph right now. What is happening? And then it turns out nothing is happening. It's just that the alternates switch and the canonical switch, and it is.
And nothing from the site owner perspective changed. They're still saying that one is the main one, and Search Console is saying that they're switching.
Nothing has changed, but the report looks like something has. And that's the other thing is, how do I test my hreflang setup actually?
So many people have written
sorry.
articles about this.
I'm just asking questions here. Yeah, because you can trust random articles on the internet
So
all the time.
So Google doesn't provide an hreflang validator. We never actually have. We had some reporting about it that was underused, and then we removed it.
Okay. Unfortunate for those who needed it.
But now we are relying more, like if someone in public asks me this question that you asked, then I would send them to external tools that I know that work well. I remember that Aleda Solis's tool works really well. If you don't know Aleda Solis, then why are you listening to this podcast? The other one that I think we mentioned in our Help Center documentation is Bill Hunt's hreflang builder. Maybe
there's one called Merkle. Is this also Bill Hunt or somebody else?
That's someone else.
Okay. The testing tool that we mentioned is Merkle.
Okay. So there's also Merkle. I don't know anything about that somehow.
Interesting.
I mean, like we put it there for a reason.
Yeah, the UI is nice.
It works. But from Google, there's nothing to validate.
Okay. But there are tools that I can use to test. They just happen to be third-party tools. Okay. Cool.
Oh, and Bill Hunt is from Black Azimuth. I think it's an SEO agency. And we put those tools there because we tested them extensively, and we know that it works.
Okay, that's good. Another thing that I wonder if it works, if I have... So there is this fallback mechanism, the X default, right? So you can specify X default. So if I have a German and an English version, and my English version is my main content version, can I just specify X default is the English version, and then I have a German version? Or should I have a German, an English, and an X default, even though the X default and the English both point to the same thing?
What?
Okay. Do you have to have X default? What is it? What is its purpose?
So with X default, you annotate a fallback page. Like, I don't have a language for this particular user, so show the user this page.
Oh, so if you have like a country selector or something, you can send them over there, or like some catch-all page that's like...
Sure, but you could also just set one page that you think you can show to users to help them navigate the site. It doesn't necessarily have to be the country selector.
And it might be different than what is the canonical, so you might want to set both. As
very likely you want to say both. Want to set both. Because the canonical is probably the page that they that they arrive on.
Okay.
And then the X default
doesn't have to be that.
No.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting. I thought the X default is kind of like, quote unquote, the language version that you just happen to want everyone who is not having a dedicated language.
But it could be a completely separate page. It doesn't necessarily need to be the alternate version of that same page you're on. It could be some other page.
It could be a page literally saying like, sorry, we don't support your locale or something.
Yeah, but it actually can be another language page.
Yes.
Like,
on that,
I don't know, like you want to confuse them, and then you serve the page in Basque, for example. And then there will be only 4 people who will understand.
What kind of site are you managing?
I don't want to say.
This is getting spicier than I anticipated. But let's again say I have a website that has 2 language versions, the English version and the German version of the content. But I consider the English version to be the like catch-all fallback locale for anyone. Can I then just specify the X default as the language, like the English version as the X default, and the German version, or do I have to specify the German version explicitly, the English version as the English version, and then the English version again as the X default?
I think it's the latter. So basically, you set up a correct hreflang cluster where you specify the different language versions, and then you add another link hreflang with the X default set to the English.
But I can't just leave out the English one because it's already there as the X
Well,
default.
you cannot. Unless you are, I think, unless you are on that particular page already. So this goes back to the to a question that you had previously, like, do you have to have a self-reference? And I think, okay, now I'm also going back to that question. I think it's easier to set up the hreflang clusters if you have a self-reference as well. Because then you can just take that cluster and just copy-paste over everywhere, because it's going to be same. Same.
That is true.
Right?
Set up from like an implementer's perspective, like how I'm going to manage it. And then...
If you want to leave out the current page, I think it works. I'm pretty sure it works.
You will be testing that later.
He will.
Martin will be testing the limits here.
And then you can put in an X default that is pointing to wherever you want.
Okay.
But I think we describe it as something that helps users or decide what to do with your site if you don't support their language or something like that.
Okay, so from a usability perspective, it's helpful.
Yeah, except I'm not nice, so I'm like,
I don't know. You wrote a blog post about like underused reasons, like reasons why you should do X default.
I think we had a reason for that blog post, but I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
I know, because it can help with the canonicalization. Like if we...
How?
So pages that are in an hreflang cluster can become canonical as easier. I think that was the message of the blog post. And that's on top on rel canonical. And we actually mentioned this in the canonicalization documentation on Lizzi, on developers.google.com/search.
There's got to be an easier acronym.
DGC/search.
I don't know. Like if we have to say it full length every time we cite it, is it really a useful acronym?
I don't know. I can say it quite fast. Developers.google.com/search. Developers.google.com/search. Developers.google.com/search.
Okay.
What will you summon if you say that 3 times in front of
I just did.
But not in front of a mirror.
Maybe it's the end of the podcast.
I think this is the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for answering all my questions regarding multinational or multi-language sites and hreflang, and I learned something today. Wow.
That was
just
not
one thing.
That was not my intention. Sorry.
I only learned how quickly you can say developers.google.com/search.
Developers.google.com/search.
And how many times without verbal typo.
Yeah. Verbal typo.
Stumbling.
Sure. That's what we call it.
All right. Okay. I think that's it for this episode.
Developers.google.com/search.
Oh.
Developers.google.com/search.
It's fine. Developers.google.com/search. It's fine. We know that you can say it. So next time, Search of the Record will be talking about what's wrong with crawling nowadays, I hear. So I'm looking forward to that. And thanks to everyone listening out there. And thanks to both of you being here with me and talking about hreflang and stuff. And goodbye.
Tschüss.
May the snails be with you.
We've been having fun with these podcast episodes, and we hope that you, the listener, have found them both entertaining and insightful too. Feel free to drop us a note on Twitter @GoogleSearchC, or chat with us at one of the next upcoming events that we go to if you have any thoughts. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much, and goodbye!